OCTOBERPOD. This story is a bit different from the usual subject matter of your show, but it does involve an urban legend, or internet lore, so I thought you would be interested. Like many in your audience, I am a fan of classic horror films and consider myself to be something of a Hammer Films historian, though I am no expert. A few years ago, I came across an obscure Reddit thread where folks like me would discuss and share information on unmade Hammer films. Now, the Hammer horror canon is legendary, but the films they left unmade are shrouded in mystery. Hammerphiles like me will lie awake at night thinking of unmade films like Nessie, Vampirella, and The Unquenchable Thirst of Dracula, and of the glories of what could have been. So, I'm on Reddit, and one of the users started making noise about a script for Hammer, based on The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. My head nearly exploded. But first, a little background. Throughout their heyday, Hammer's two greatest challenges were appeasing British film censors and appealing to American audiences and financiers. Regarding the latter, Hammer frequently experimented with casting American actors in its film. Bette Davis, Tallulah Bankhead, and Richard Widmark were all cast in Hammer films, but with unlucky results. According to a Reddit user called Son of Celluloid, Hammer producers were keen to appeal to American audiences by adapting an all-American horror story. And so, they selected The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Everyone on the Reddit thread called BS and accused Son of Celluloid of playing an out-of-season April Fool's gag. But then he began posting PDFs of inter-office memoranda on Hammer Studios' letterhead, dating back to a time period from 1967 to 1969. The Reddit thread was taken down years ago, so I can't directly quote any of the memos, but they did seem to support the claim that Hammer wanted to adapt the Irving short story, and were hoping to have Don Sharp or Roy Ward Baker directed for an early 1969 release. We pored over those memos for weeks, and then Son of Celluloid dropped a bomb, which, for a while anyway, silenced most of the skeptics. He posted what appeared to be a complete script for a film called The Curse of Sleepy Hollow. The script was odd, and, as usual with Hammer, took a number of liberties with the source material. For one thing, the story takes place during the final years of the Revolutionary War. The Headless Horseman lost his head in a battle only a year or two prior to the events of the film. Some characters in Sleepy Hollow even remember the battle. The Headless Horseman, therefore, is something of a novice specter. At first, this seems an odd choice, but I believe this was done so that American characters could more plausibly be played by British actors. Even stranger, the script plays out almost like a sequel to a more traditional Sleepy Hollow film that was never written. If that doesn't make a lot of sense, then let me give you a quick synopsis of the script as I remember it. It begins with a prologue taken straight from the Washington Irving story. Ichabod Crane leaves the party at the Van Tassel farm and rides through the woods alone. He is pursued by the Headless Horseman and subsequently beheaded. The opening credits roll over a shot of Ichabod Crane's trampled hat in the mud as night slowly transitions to dawn. Following the credits and the prologue, we learn that 18 months have passed. A coach arrives in the Hollow, and we are introduced to a new character, Eliza Crane. Eliza is the sister of Ichabod Crane, who traveled from London to urge her brother to return home to be with their father on his deathbed. She encounters the village innkeeper who bristles at the name Crane and who, typical of Hammer innkeepers, refuses to rent a room from his Crane. Another woman, who has been lurking in a dark corner of the inn, approaches Eliza and offers her a room at her home. This woman is Katrina Van Tassel. In a long dialogue scene at the Van Tassel farm, Eliza learns of her brother's murder at the hands of the Headless Horseman. We also learn that Brom, now Katrina's fiancé, was accused of the crime and is now languishing in jail. Katrina's father, who regarded Brom as his own son, died of a heart attack when Brom was arrested. Katrina inherited all of her father's wealth. Strangely enough, there is no mention of her mother. Eliza and Katrina team up to solve the mystery of Ichabod's death and to prove Brom's innocence. At this point, there's much toing and froing as the two heroines play Nancy Drew along what likely would have been a Bray Studios backlot, doubling for the Haunted Hollow. The two meet various quirky and unsavory characters, including the parson, who seems very knowledgeable about matters of the... After speaking with our two heroines, the parson gives Katrina and Eliza a book on New England witchcraft that had once belonged to Ichabod Crane. In the meantime, the bodies pile up as the Headless Horseman continues his preferred nocturnal activities. A couple of these killings would have looked great on film. The best one occurs when the parson helps Brom Bones escape from his jail cell. Brom makes his escape, walking along the same stretch of road where Ichabod was killed. He hears, but does not see, a horse stalking him slowly through the trees. He comes across a lit path and follows it. The path is lighted with dozens and dozens of jack-o'-lanterns, carved with increasingly grotesque faces. It leads Brom to what appears to be a ceremonial circle. It's a trap. The spectral horseman rides up and collects his head. This is clearly the best kill in the script, commingling moments of suspense and shock. I could easily imagine James Bernard's music playing over this scene. As it turns out, the parson is actually the leader of either a witch coven or a satanic cult. The script wasn't very clear about which. And they summon and control the Headless Horseman to do their bidding. A very similar concept was also used in Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow movie. Eliza Crane and Katrina Van Tassel eventually run afoul of the Satanists. Eliza is captured and brought to the ceremonial circle in the woods as a ritual sacrifice. Katrina alerts the local authorities, who assemble a posse of farmers to rescue Eliza. The posse is successful at killing or apprehending the Satanists, but Eliza had already fled into the woods with the Headless Horseman close on her track. Katrina steals the parson's horse and attempts to rescue Eliza. Just as the horseman's sword is about to claim Eliza's head, Katrina dispatches the spectral Hessian using a magic incantation from Ichabod Crane's own book on New England witchcraft. The Headless Horseman disappears in a vapor, leaving behind his sword, which drops to the ground as his hand disintegrates. Credits. I thought it was a great script. If it's authentic and if it had been made, it would have been the only Hammer film with a really strong female protagonist, let alone two. All the Hammer files who read it were divided on its authenticity. But that didn't stop us from fan casting it. For anyone interested, here are my picks of Hammer regulars who'd be great in this hypothetical picture. Ralph Bates would make a perfect Ichabod Crane. The role of the parson seems to be written especially for Christopher Lee, but casting Christopher Lee would eliminate much of the script's mystery. You would know almost instantly that the parson was up to no good. But Michael Goff, or Thorley Walters, cast against type, would also be good in the role. Naturally, I'd cast Michael Ripper as the innkeeper. He's really the only choice for the role. Hammer alums Oliver Reed or Robert Morris from Frankenstein Created Woman would have been great as Brom Bones. There's been a lot of discussion of who might have filled the lead female roles, but for my money, I'd cast Veronica Carlson and Barbara Ewing as Eliza and Katrina, respectively. And that's my tale. The Reddit thread was somewhat mysteriously deleted, and all the links to the memos and the script were lost. Son of Celluloid's account was disabled, and he seemed to disappear from the internet altogether. I've searched and searched for folks who might have saved the script locally, but so far, no dice. I've heard rumors that you can download it on the dark web if you know where to look, but I wouldn't dip my toes into the dark web for that. Would you? Something really fucked up happened to me in the town where the legend of Sleepy Hollow was supposed to take place. The real Sleepy Hollow, if you will. All this happened in 1993. I was just 21 years old, getting ready to graduate with my bachelor's. Back in those days, me and my friends used to go on weekend road trips to haunted locations. We took trips to the Bunnyman Bridge, the Happy Birthday House, the Monroeville Mall, and the Graveyard and Night of the Living Dead. My birthday's in late October, so the gang thought it'd be a gas to celebrate my 21st at one of the bars in Tarrytown, New York. Tarrytown, as you probably know, really plays up this Sleepy Hollow business for the tourists. They go all out with Halloween decorations, and there's headless horseman shit everywhere. We had a late supper, and we're headed to the bar at about 10 o'clock. Now this is important. What happened next happened before we started drinking. It was me, my roommate Campbell, his girlfriend Denise, and my girlfriend Elliot. Now this was a long time ago, so the town's probably changed a lot since then. But on this night, the restaurant we ate at was across a bridge from the bar we were headed to. I don't remember the name of the bar, but it had a pumpkin-headed horseman on the sign. It was a nice but chilly night, so we left our cars at the restaurant and just walked across the bridge. Now, I know you're probably thinking of one of those old covered bridges, like the one with the Ichabod cartoon. It was nothing so romantic. Just an overpass, really. 2 lanes of traffic with a narrow sidewalk that crossed over a little wooded park and a creek. It was a cold night, even for that time of year. There wasn't any traffic except for the leaves blowing down the hill. We started out for the bar and we were just about to step up onto the sidewalk portion of the bridge when Campbell and I bumped into a woman. She was climbing a set of stairs that led up from the little park. She was wearing wire-rimmed glasses and dressed in a frilly colonial-era costume. We didn't find her appearance remarkable because this was, after all, Sleepy Hollow. It was a Halloween town in late October. They were always doing some sort of historical recreation or other. In fact, there's at least one historical building with a tavern in it where the waitresses wear period costume. Anyway, we bump into this lady and Campbell says something like, "Excuse me," or "Oh, I'm sorry." The girls are by now way ahead of us, and Elliot looked back and said, "Who are you guys talking to?" We said this lady, but when we looked, she was gone. No possible way she could have sneaked off without us seeing her. Well, we didn't think much of it, so we crossed the bridge to catch up with the girls. On the other side, me and Campbell looked back. At the spot on the bridge where we'd bumped into the colonial lady, there was now a tall, slender figure. He was wearing a black hood and looked very much like the Grim Reaper. Couldn't see its face, but it had glowing red eyes. It looked straight at Campbell and pointed. Well, we got out of there. We grabbed the girls by the arm and ran the rest of the way to the bar. We sat until closing and got much drunk, as Denise used to say. I think we ran up the biggest bar tab of my life that night. Still, as much fun as we had, me and Campbell couldn't get the sight of that Grim Reaper out of our heads. Exactly 1 week to the hour after that encounter in Tarrytown, Campbell was in a car accident. He was driving home from his job at the coffee shop when a Wawa truck swerved into oncoming traffic and smacked right into Campbell's car. They say he died instantly. I believe the thing on the bridge was a warning. I wonder if Campbell saw it again. I wonder if Campbell saw it again the night he died. I wonder if one night I'll see it again too.